Alright guys, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be counting down the top 5 rare mounts from the Burning Crusade expansion. If you want to see more videos like this guys, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because that really helps out. And also follow me on Twitch if you want to catch any of my live streams. But anyway, let's jump in. So there are a number of rare mounts in World of Warcraft which have frustrated many players who go out of their way to go and farm them. But back in the Burning Crusade, mounts were even rarer because you couldn't solo the dungeons or raids that they dropped in. Plus you would have to compete against everyone else in your group, and lastly, mounts weren't account wide, so you couldn't just easily farm the same raid boss over and over again on multiple different alts. So not only were the mounts rare, but you actually had to win a dice roll against everyone else in your group, which could be 4 other people, 9 other people, or even 24 other people. So when you saw somebody in Shatterer on the Ashes of Allar during the Burning Crusade, it truly was a sight to behold that would make you stop in your tracks just to get a little bit of a cheeky gander. Back in those days, mounts were rare on a totally different level to how they are now on retail. Our first mount is the White Hawkstrider that had a 2% chance to drop from Kel'Thuz's Sunstrider, who is the last boss of the Magister's Terrace, although the mount would only drop in heroic mode, which meant you could only farm this mount once per day. The mount itself is a simple recolor of the Blood Elf mounts, which was mainly appealing to the Alliance since it was only Hawkstrider available to them. It was also appealing to anyone who played Tauren, since Tauren didn't have access to the Hawkstrider mounts before the release of the Wrath of the Lich King for some reason, although it's probably because Taurens do look a little bit goofy on Hawkstriders since they're actually bigger than the mount. This mount was actually the personal mount of Kel'Thuz's Sunstrider, although you never actually see him on the mount in-game as far as I'm aware. When Blizzard added the collection menu, there is a small note from a character called Elradan stating, "I may question Prince Kel'Thuz's loyalties, but never his style." So that obviously was the thing that confirmed it was actually his mount. All in all, it was a good boss to farm because he could also drop the Orb of the Sindori, which is a unique transformation item that changes your race into a Blood Elf while keeping your equipped gear equipped. There's also a cool pet and some other useful profession recipes. The next mount we have is the Fiery Warhorse that had a 1% chance to drop from the boss Achumen the Horseman, who was the first boss of the 10-man raid at Karazhan. The mount itself is a replica of Achumen's mount called Midnight, a unique undead horse with a very deceiving name since it doesn't really appear to be a very fiery mount at all, like the mounts you get from the Firelands raids for instance. If you look closely at the mount, it actually has fangs and a horn, which is the main distinction of this mount to be different from the Death Knight mounts later added in Wrath of the Lich King. People do in fact mistake this mount a lot as a Death Knight mount, but it is in fact technically a Dead Wind Steed, the iconic mount of the Dark Riders, who are also not Death Knights because they are the servants of Medivh, not the Lich King, enslaved by his evil magic to hunt down artifacts for him. The only time you get to see these Dark Riders in game, who by the way are very heavily influenced by the Nazgul ring wraiths from the Lord of the Rings, is during the Unholy Death Knight and Affliction Warlock artifact weapon questline that came out in Legion. Other than that, they are briefly mentioned during a classic WoW questline in Duskwood to kill Morbent Fell. Other than that, you can go and read the graphic novel. For number 3, we have the Ashes of Allar, which also dropped from Kel'Thuz's Sunstrider, although it drops from Tempest Keep, which is a 25-man raid. A lot of people found this mount on retail since it's one of the best looking mounts in the game, but back in TBC, there will probably only be a handful of people with the mount on your server. Before the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, this was the only mount in the game minus the PvP mounts, which gave you that cheeky bonus 30% mount speed for a total of 310% mount speed. This was a unique bonus reward for the very lucky player who obtained the mount. It's unfortunate that today everyone can just get that 310% mount speed by just paying for it. Interestingly, the first time this mount dropped, the mount didn't actually drop from the boss, because it was sent in the mail to the player Urza Chatterton due to the Make-A-Wish Foundation making it happen. He also got the opportunity to go into Blizzard's studio to work on making his own NPC, a questline, and even a crossbow was named after him. When he sadly passed away, Blizzard renamed the Elder in Mulgore to Elder Urza Wheathoof, accompanied by a phoenix hatchling in memory of him. Number 4 we have the Ravenlord mount, another totally unique looking mount that dropped from Anzu in heroic mode Sefek Halls with a drop chance of 0.9%. Not only was it a low drop chance, but back in TBC it was a demanding task for you to be able to summon the boss in the first place, because it wasn't just automatically there whenever you went into heroic mode. First of all, only a druid could summon the boss as part of his Swift Flight form questline, which would at least require you to have Artisan Flying unlocked, which was a lot of gold back in the day, and then the druid had to fully complete a long questline before he could get the reusable Moonstone to summon the boss. The boss fight itself was a pretty difficult and long fight, since at 75% and 25% health the boss would banish himself, making him immune to damage for a full minute, not to mention he had 3 different CC abilities, a mana drain, and some ad mobs to deal with. He basically had more mechanics than the whole of Molten Core. And lastly we have the Brewfest Mounts, which can either be the Brewfest Ram or the Brewfest Kodo, which have a 5% drop chance to drop from Korin Diabrew in Blackrock Depths during the Brewfest event. And although there is both a Ram and a Kodo that can be looted, they aren't in fact faction specific, so again this is another way for a faction to obtain the looks of an opposite faction's mount. When Brewfest was first added, the mounts could be purchased. You had to collect 600 Brewfest tokens in order to obtain the Honorary Brewer hand stamp that would allow you to buy the mounts with gold, although originally you could only buy an apprentice level ram for 10 gold or the Brewfest ram for 100 gold. The Kodo was later added to the game when they decided to remove the ability to purchase a mount. Unfortunately, the apprentice level mount was totally removed from the game and is no longer obtainable in any shape or form, which technically makes it one of the rarest mounts in the game, much like the original unarmoured versions of the faction epic mounts, since they were only available for a very limited amount of time. And obviously back in TBC you couldn't just instantly teleport to the dungeon for the event, because that was added in patch 3.3. You actually had to manually walk to Blackrock Depths every time you wanted to attempt to defeat this boss. And that is the end of the countdown, guys, quite literally, because there aren't any more mounts in the Burning Crusade except for the mounts that were available in vanilla that were technically rare drop chance mounts from bosses and dungeon bosses, all that kind of thing. This is because the rest of the mounts were obtained through an immense level of rep farming, like the iconic Neverwing mount, the Never-Raise, Talbooks and the Cenarian War Hippogriff and things like that. Anyway, my name is Metagoblin. Until the next video, ciao.